And I'm here today with Tearlach Hutcheson. He is the vice president of film for Studio Movie Grill. How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have you here today. I think it's exciting. We're gonna probably hit on a couple of really interesting topics that we probably generally don't get to talk about on this show. So I think I'd love to start by hearing about you and kind of how you ended up as the VP of film for such an awesome concept.
My film career really started when I was doing my final year of honors at University of Colorado. And I took a course in film ethics. And then someone explained to me that you could do a master's degree in film theory, which wasn't about making films, but about the theory behind them. And I fell in love with that idea, despite my father's shock and dismay. And from there, I grew into this role where my first job was managing a 1947 art house with 3 screens for Landmark Theatres. I spent my first 10 years of my life working with art house with Magnolia Pictures and Landmark Theatres, growing in that world. And then I was hired by Studio Movie Grill about 13 years ago as the director of marketing and moved into the film position because I was the film expert very quickly and was promoted to VP of film. And I've been at Studio Movie Grill for about 13 years now.
That's awesome. And so Studio Movie Grill as a concept, can you maybe dive into that a little bit more? It's obviously more than just a regular movie theater.
Studio Movie Grill is a what we call a cinema eatery concept. It's the fastest growing branch of the exhibition business. Perhaps the most famous one is Alamo Draft House. But it's one of these concepts where you go to the movies, there's not an external concession stand. You come and sit down the movie, you have a table, you have a button which you press, and then someone comes and serves you, and you can get a range of food from pizza, hamburgers, salads, and a range of beverages from milkshakes through to a good scotch, lots of wine, lots of cocktails. As a side note, is that one of the things that goes up in sales for us when we show children's movies is margaritas because of all the mothers.
I can easily see that. I'm not gonna lie. That's I think I would probably how I enjoy my children's movie as well. So I think one of the things that people are always interested in, especially when we talk about the movie industry, how's it going? How is the industry as a whole doing post pandemic?
So I have to start out by saying that since they introduced radio in the 1920s, the media has been saying the movie theater business is dead. And obviously the biggest impact on the movie theater business was the introduction of TV in the 1950s. And the pandemic's definitely sort of had this huge impact on it as well. But what we've found post-pandemic is that the films that are coming out are doing the kind of grosses that that same film would have done pre-pandemic. The latest Thor: Love and Thunder movie did some of the highest sales ever for a Thor movie. In fact, I believe it was the highest selling Thor movie that's come out of the 4 Thor movies. Doctor Strange 2 did nearly twice the business of Doctor Strange 1. So the audience is there. The biggest dilemma that we have at the moment is the amount of content. And it's not that the content is all being made and going to streaming now. It is that during the pandemic, the studios sold their content to streaming because they had a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. And now they have to fill in that content. But there's all these production delays because of COVID. And it takes multiple years to make a movie. So all the studios are telling us that by 2024, they expect to be back at their full slate of movies. And that's when I think you're going to see the health of the business truly resume. But, we as a company are making a profit at the moment. But so we're not, so we're still moving ahead and we're very happy with our business. But we also know that when we get to 2024 is when we're really going to be back at full swing. So the other thing that I heard this great comment the other day by a leader in the industry who sat there and said, airline sales are down 20%, hotel sales are down 20% this year, movie theater sales are down by 20%. No one's saying the airline and the hotel businesses are going out of business. So why do people say this about the movie theater business? Movie theaters are the best place to watch a movie. And it's really, and a lot of people, they go to movie theaters when they really want to truly experience a movie that they truly, truly want to see. Because, a comedy is funnier when you watch it with other people. A horror movie is scary when you watch it with other people. An adventure movie, an action film like the upcoming Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is better when you watch it with other people. And so that's why movie theaters as a format for viewing movies are still going to remain to be the prime experience.
So I think that's really interesting that you ended it with that, right? Is the prime experience. So what kind of things as these movies are coming back in 2024, right? Obviously it's going to increase volume at every tier of movie theater. I've got to imagine. What kind of things can you and your place in your industry do to drive that experience to really engage customers to increase with the volume as it comes back?
You know, a lot of people talk about sort of marketing techniques and all of this, a lot of that kind of thing. I think ultimately what it comes down to is providing great customer service and ease of access into the movie theaters. So technology that makes it easy to buy a ticket, technology that makes it very easy for you to get concessions. Once you turn up the theaters are immaculately clean. The staff is friendly. People make you want to be there. And it's just as simple as going to a restaurant, that if you go to a restaurant and they make it easy for you to order food and they make you feel welcome, make you feel like you want to be there, you're going to keep on getting back to that restaurant. And that's just the core nature of what our business is about. Make it easy for the guest and make them feel welcome once they turn up.
Absolutely. And I think that that translates to pretty much every sector of the industry, right? I mean, as businesses returning, regardless of what your section of hospitality is, and now everybody's looking for that differentiator, right? Why should people come back here again? And I think it's a fight that people aren't used to post COVID. So I think it's interesting to see how people are able to take concepts like yours and make it hopefully a standard at some point in time, right? Raise the experience, raise the opportunities. Do you see this concept continue to expand as we kind of shimmy back out of COVID here?
Most definitely. When I first came to work for Studio Movie Grill, I don't think there was any cinema or eatery chain that was in the top 10 and maybe one or two that were in the top 20 size of movie theater chains in the US. And now companies like Cinepolis USA, Cinemax, Alamo Drafthouse, the movie theater branch of Marcus Theaters, Studio Movie Grill were all in that top 20 tier uh, of the biggest movie theater chains. We are the fastest growing segment of the business. And we're seeing, AMC got into the dining business. We're seeing other companies get in the dining business. Cinemark has done their cinema concept because people really see that there's two futures to the movie theater business. The one is the cinema eatery. The second is what we call premium large format screens, whether that is IMAX, the Dolby Digital experience, the Cinemark XD, and other companies have their own type of experience. So these are the two biggest growing sectors of the business. And so that's why we see that our segment will continue to expand.
So is there anything else that's maybe on the horizon that people aren't necessarily seeing right now? I mean, you've got the larger screens, you've got the eatery concept. Is there anything else that's kind of bubbling in the background or has been developing?
Well, one of the big changes that's coming up is that in the last 20 years, in fact, it's only been about 10 years ago that we did the big transition from 35 millimeter film to digital. And that was a huge deal. What we're seeing now is we're seeing laser digital projectors coming out. And that's going to give you a much higher quality of picture. I've watched these kind of things. I've watched them with the 3D glasses on, and they've gone up to window, and I really felt like I could physically step out into that window like it was the real world. So that's one of the big things that's going on. The other thing that's going on is that there is technology developed to do huge LED screens by combining multiple LED screens to give you that in a movie theater experience. The trick with that one, though, is that they've also had to go back and reconfigure the way the sound works because the sound is behind the speaker. So the speakers are behind the screen. Well, you can't have speakers behind an LED TV, so they've had to reconfigure how sound works inside the auditoriums. From a technology point of view, I think that those are two of the sort of major changes. We're always working on giving a better visual experience and a better audio experience inside the movie theaters. And it's very important for our business to have a partnership with technology providers to do that. And in fact, it's ever since 1927 when The Jazz Singer came out, which is the first widely released sound movie, that we've always had to partner up with technological providers to do that for us. And oftentimes, they're the ones who come to us with the new technology. And then we adopt the technology and go from there.
So how are you deciding which technology makes sense? I mean, I'm sure that people are coming out with great ideas all the time, but how are you as a movie guy? I mean, how are you deciding what makes sense?
I think the first one is the cost of the new technology. Sometimes you have to wait till new technology comes down to an affordable price point. But you know, the other technology that's hovering out there is the VR technology. And for me personally, it's something that, avoiding as a movie going experience, because I believe that it removes that whole experience of being with a crowd of people in a dark room, and a crowd of strangers in a dark room. It sort of isolates you. I think it's a great type of technology to play around with, and I've had some great VR experiences personally, but to have that group aspect about, because I'm stealing this line from Lisa Benoit, who heads up Focus Features, and she made this great comment, which is, when we go watch a movie, we realize how much we have in common with each other versus how little differences we actually have with each other. And that's the aspect of being with a bunch of strangers, all having the same experience.
That that's extremely interesting because I think that a lot of people are finding the same thing, right? Is that, obviously everybody was cooped up in their house for a year and a half or 2 years or whatever that looks like. Now it's that shared experience that everybody's having, and how can you capitalize on that shared experience and grow it, within your business? I think it's really interesting. And I'll be honest with you, until we started talking, I don't know if I'd considered, what the actual experience is sitting in a movie theater and hearing everybody laugh as you're going through a comedy.
Well, the other trick though is you got to go there on a Friday, Saturday. You got to get there with the crowds. Don't come to the Monday first show and expect the same experience, unless it's a long weekend. But
I was gonna
you've got to
say,
get there when it's busy.
the one where you take your children because you're afraid of what they're gonna do when everybody else is around is
Yes.
the Monday morning, Tuesday morning ones.
Yeah.
I completely understand
Yeah.
that. So, and I think this is, talking about trending. I mean, you're the movie guy, right? You're the VP of film. This has been your career. What kind of trends are you seeing in movies that are coming out? I mean, you listed, of the movies you've talked about so far, they've pretty much all been Marvel. What other kind of trends of movies are you seeing coming out?
Well, it's funny because I list the Marvel films because they're the best known titles out there.
Right.
Disney has done a very good job with the blockbuster concept and focusing on unknown content and blowing it out of the waters and creating a whole story that's interweaved with Disney Plus and so many other parts of it. But there's so many different parts of storytelling. And I recently, I recently had the experience of watching Tar with Kate Blanchett, right? Then watching Bros, a gay rom-com. Then watching the movie Till. And so watching all these films that are not the big blockbuster films, but all have very sort of important stories to tell, and not, important stories, and even those things that aren't important, such as Pray for the Devil, just different stories for different demographics. And you suddenly realize that there are so many films that come out that appeal to so many different people that becomes the trend. So we know that there's going to be massive people who are going to congregate towards the blockbusters. There's going to be so many other great movies out there that fill up those other times. And what I love about movies personally is just the breadth and style of story making that you can get out of the movies.
I think that's really interesting because, like you said, a lot of people will cue in on those big blockbusters, right? The Top Gun 2s, the Marvel movies, the whatever those are coming down everybody knows they're coming, right? You've been planning for 6 months and waiting for
Yeah.
this thing to come out. Do you see more of these, let's call them non-blockbusters, permeating the market as we get closer to that 2024 where people feel like the release dates are going to be more consistent?
That's really the part of the segment that we're missing right now, is we're missing what we call those mid-range films.
Right.
What happened to a lot of those mid-range films, in my opinion, was that they were sold to the streamers because the streamers wanted to buy them. During the pandemic, studios had to, with their partnerships with producers and for their own producer responsibility, we made that decision. But those films are now being made again. Each year, there's probably only 10 big films that come out. And a big film for me is something that grosses more than 75 million.
Okay.
And of those 10 big films, they do 40 to 50% of all the ticket sales. But you need all those other films to spread throughout the year and that they all still bring in audiences. And the other thing that we get guilty of doing is that we forget all these movies that came out earlier that we've watched and that we enjoyed, and we just forget that we watched them. I was recently at a presentation by Paramount, and they sat there and said, we had a great year. We put out Scream, the sequel to Scream, which was a great little film. We put out Jackass Forever, which was, I don't know if you saw that, but
I
that
did
was that was an extremely funny movie. Sonic the Hedgehog 2,
saw that one. Yep.
Top Gun Maverick, and now they just put out Smile that's had the one of the things we talk about in the industry is the drop in ticket sales from one week to the next. They had one of the lowest drops in for a horror movie ever. They've all had these movies that have done well and are good movies. So there's lots of good movies out there. We just forget, I think at times that there's so many good movies out there.
Do you think there's going to be a point where you as the VP of film are going to be restricting the flow of movies into your theater as they're coming out again in the future? I feel like that's got to be something that you're doing as far as curating what's being played to match the experience that you guys are putting on.
That's a good question, because in my business and what I do, there's two types of way of approaching it. There's film buyers who have to fight to get movies. I'm likely the other side where I have to fight to turn down movies and tell them that I can't play them,
Right.
because our business is because of the success of our business. There's definitely times in which we do go out and fight for certain titles. Where we really, but really where we get the true crunch time is at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that's when there's so many movies coming out. And in the cinema eatery business model, we're not building 20 plexes. You can't serve that many screens. That's just
Right.
too much. We're building, at the most a 12 plex, but we've got a lot of 8 plexes, and there's more movies, than there are screens available at those times of year. So the other thing to take into account about a cinema eatery is that when you go into one and you go sit in a 200-seat auditorium, well, if you go to your local restaurant, they've probably only got 120 seats, but we just sat all those 200 seats at the same time,
Right.
and we had to bring out all the meals at the same time. And you're trying to get a dinner reservation, they're just trying to space out tables all the time, and yet we're going to do it all in one hit.
So you're basically running banquets every single show where you're seating the entire
Oh,
wedding party, serving the
yeah.
entire wedding party, and moving on.
But we're not doing banquets.
Right.
We are doing. We're doing made to order food. I mean, we've got pizza ovens out the back. We have burger grills. It's coming in, and we're doing made to order food. Yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. I think the logistics, anybody who's out there who's been in food service or hotels or anything like that is just sitting here
Right.
logistically trying to figure out how you do basically serve a 200 top with individual orders.
I have people who've come and asked for tours of the back to see just how we do it. So, and my philosophy is, I'm going to show you how to do it, because it's the same way that I could pop the hood of my car, show you the engine, and you won't be able to go back and build it. So I'll show you how you can do it, how we do it, but you're going to need a lot more staff and talent. A long time ago, I worked for the Hard Rock Cafe. I got the chance to work for them in London, Sydney, and in Phoenix. And so I had the restaurant experience. And when people ask me about the experience, I'm like, well, it's a movie theater, but it's not a movie theater. It's a restaurant, not a restaurant. If you think you're a restaurant person can open up a movie theater, you can't. If you think you're a movie theater person can open up this type of concept, you can't. You need a certain set of talents, you need a certain set of skills. It's a complex model.
Absolutely. And obviously having worked for Hard Rock for a number of years, definitely how to build an experience. I spent 7 years with them myself,
Yeah.
and it's definitely, you learn the value of an experience very quickly. And so
Yeah.
obviously if you're going to key in on one or the other, you're probably not going to be successful. You need to be able to key in on both and build that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up here, I know that you are, you told me prior to us talking that you've been teaching at SMU. Is that right? The film program?
SMU, I've taught in their film department, like one class per year for 18 years now.
Wow. And do you end up mentoring out of that program, or do you end up mentoring out of the role that you're in for Studio Cinema Grow, Studio Movie Grow?
I mentor as part of a mentorship program within our industry out of Studio Movie Grow, but it's not even Studio Movie Grow employees. It's for people in the wider industry, which is organized by an industry group by Film Row out of Los Angeles.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
So when you're mentoring people these days, what kind of advice are you giving them as they're looking to kind of grow their careers?
The first piece of advice is, when there are social events and networking events, go there. Even if you feel like you're an introvert, go meet people, let people know what your face is. But the second most important thing I give them is that if you want to grow as a person, but you're not telling anybody else that you want to grow or where you want to be or what the next step of your career wants to be, then you're not going to be able to take that next step. If you go to your immediate superior and say, "This is what I want to grow into," they're going to focus in on that. They're going to go, "Okay, let's go for that." But if you go and meet other people in other companies, tell them what you do, and then tell them, "Look, I really want to do this." Suddenly, you're on their radar. So you have to make yourself known. And the other key thing is, go to work, do a good job. Turn up, do the job. People will see that you do a good job, and that's how you're going to get noticed and move forward.
I think that's phenomenal advice. And anybody who is, definitely looking to grow their career, you got to know where you want to go, and you you got to let people know. They'll help you get there. I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely, definitely key there. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. So
Thank you.
if people want to learn more about Studio Movie Grill, where are they going?
Website, studiomoviegrill.com. You have to spell out all those words, studiomoviegrill.com. And the information is on there. We also have this wonderful search engine called Google, which you can type in and click on the news section and hear about the news of Studio Movie Grill. That's our prime resource.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure you're gonna have people going there because it's a phenomenal concept that I think people are going to be a part of. Thank you very much for giving us some insight into the, kind of the future of film here, or at least the industry servicing the film industry. So that's absolutely awesome, and thank you very much for that. And I look forward to having you, hopefully, back again in the future sometime.
Hey, thank you. I actually enjoyed having this conversation.
I'm glad. I'm glad. We'll have to do
Yeah.
it again sometime.
Yeah.
Talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.